right. I would do anything to record another episode of
American Brews and Tunes.
Hey Pooh!
Here's a theme song, you know it's not a mean song. It's a good song, just as it should song. American Brews and Tunes. Shibbity beeby dow!
Wow, thanks again for returning to us for our second part of our two-part episode.
Yes, if you have forgotten already, because, you know, it's pretty easy to forget what happens in people's lives and in your own. We're doing this this two-part episode, this being the second part, where we kind of do a study of how bands change over the course of their careers.
Yes.
We'll say that.
Bands change from album to album. Sometimes they change from song to song, but we're going to stick with the from album to album.
Yeah, so last week, Steve listened to the self-titled album from Bon Iver, and I listened to the album from Against Me called Becoming Axl Rose. Reinventing Axl Rose,
There you go.
bad.
And this week, we are listening to albums from the same exact bands, but obviously later on in their career.
Yep.
I am listening to Bon Iver's album 22 A Million, and Jesse's listening to Against Me's Transgender Dysphoria Blues.
Yes.
So there's been plenty of years in between each album that was released, so obviously there's got to be some type of change. We're
Yep.
here to enlighten you about those changes, I suppose.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
But we're also talking about beers that are somewhat similar or related in some
yeah.
respects, right?
Last week, I had a brew by Evil Twin Brewing called Yin. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this little thing called Yin and Yang, but obviously Evil Twin has heard of it. Because this week, I'm having the opposite one of that beer, Yang.
And what was the yin?
The Yin was an Imperial Taiji style stout.
So what's the yang?
The Yang is an Imperial Taiji, and I believe I'm saying that right. It's Taiji. I think it's just Taiji, maybe?
I don't know.
But anyway, regardless, it is an Imperial Taiji style India Pale Ale. So I'm kind of excited to try this, obviously.
That'll be curious.
It is also, if you remember last week, the stout was 10%, and this IPA is also 10%. So it is going to be a boozy one.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I mean, literally it is, but, you know.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay.
Anyhow.
What are you having? What did you have last week?
I had the Bearded Iris Homestyle.
Okay.
A delicious brew.
Okay.
This week I'm having the Bearded Iris Double Homestyle. Wow! So it's clearly just a imperial version of the regular Homestyle.
Yes, and or a double version of it.
Yeah, and or. That's for
and
sure.
And or.
A fun little piece of
Trivia?
can trivia, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Normally in their beers, right underneath where the name is, they'll have 3 descriptive words.
Yes.
Like sometimes they'll say citrusy, or I've seen one be pillowy.
Pillowy, yeah.
Like one's like
one.
mosaic, ones they'll give little descriptors, ones will say dry.
Yeah.
But on this one, there's just 3 words.
Okay.
Not necessarily 3 descriptors, but 3 words. And here's what it says. Mosaic 4 days. Classic. So I'm really excited to see what this is. For all you who don't remember what the Homestyle is that I had last week, it is from Bearded Iris, one of our favorite local Nashville breweries.
Yes.
And it is a hazy New England style IPA, so it's unfiltered.
What?
And it's really kind of juicy, hoppy, and sweet and delicious. Like when you pour it into a glass, it's all cloudy and whatnot.
You're just like, oh my gosh, that looks like a meal in a glass. That looks like a tasty meal.
Looks like orange juice almost.
Whatever your tasty meal would be, whether it be a steak or like a casserole or a pizza.
What?
Or whatever your ideally tasty meal is, that's what this beer looks like in a glass.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, because I don't think so.
It doesn't literally look like that, Steve.
Well, I think a stout looks like a meal in a glass, but not this.
No, it doesn't. All I'm saying is that like this beer is delicious.
It's
and
delicious.
Awesome.
But
I'm liking,
I don't know where you were going with that, and it just didn't make sense to me.
I'm likening it.
I'm liking the beer, I suppose, but you're likening.
I'm likening it to if you were hungry.
Yeah.
And then you see like your ideal delicious meal, and you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so good.
It's appetizing.
Yeah,
like
it's
a meal would be
appetizing.
appetizing.
So that's what this beer is.
Okay, I thought you were like, it looks like
and
a
it's going to
steak.
be. No, I wasn't literally saying that it looks like
But
a
it kind of
steak.
sounded like that.
No, it didn't.
Kind of.
I didn't mean it like that anyway.
Fair enough. All right, well, what say you that we, you want to give these a crack, a little pour, and little descriptors? And
Yeah. Let's do that. Oh boy.
In case you couldn't tell by that sound, we both have cans. Jesse has
CANS.
a 12-ounce standard-looking can, and I got the big pint-sized can, the 16-ounce can.
It smells delicious.
Well, Jesse and I are about finished pouring our beers. Jesse's beer is quite heady. Mine is quite perfect.
Look at how different the colors are.
Jesse's beer is very dark.
You guys, look at how
classify
different
that
the
as?
colors are. I would say this is like
Like an orange red?
kind of like an orange brown, yeah, kind of like a red brown, orange
Whereas
brown.
mine is a hazy
wheat color,
golden gold orange.
a little bit dark. You know, like how the stalks are a little bit darker than the grains on top.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
I'd say it's like the stalk.
But it's cloudy for sure. It's not as cloudy, I think. And I wasn't able to fit the entire can into my glass, so that could be the reason why. But it's not as cloudy as I thought it would be.
Ooh.
So perhaps some of the sediment still in the bottom of that can. Whenever
Could be.
I fill it back up, we'll know. But what's your smell like?
Oh, it smells really good.
Oh,
Whoops.
I think a little.
Got a little bit of the foam on my nose. Oh, that was in a previous episode. You got foam on your nose, and you were like, "I got foam on my nose, but don't call me a foam nose."
I got foam on my finger, but don't call me a foam finger. But you can buy a foam finger at a football game.
Foam
Anyhow,
finger.
Mine smells delicious as well.
Foam finger is a dual
Very
meaning.
hot present. Very delicious smelling.
Oh my!
What is
Even I've been like kind of tasting the foam, and it's really intense.
Is it
Really
If the foam's
intense.
intense, one can only imagine what the beer will be like. Am I right?
My beer, I guess, is only 65 IBUs.
That's actually pretty low.
Yeah, I
would've
would
assumed that would've been more.
assume that an Imperial IPA would be a little bit higher than that.
One might assume, but one might be wrong.
Exactly. So me being one is wrong.
You know what they say about assuming?
It makes you look like a dummy whenever you're wrong.
I was just about to say, assuming can be all right. I thought that's what they said.
Sometimes it's okay to assume things.
Yeah.
Like, say you wake up and, your room's still, like when you went to bed, your room was dark. You turned the lights off. But then when you wake up, there's light in your room.
You assume it's light
So
outside,
you could
right?
assume that it's daytime.
You might be wrong, and maybe there's a fire outside, but
Exactly. But it's safe to assume that if it's light in your room and your lights are off, it's daytime probably.
pursue the truth, but it's okay to assume. Well, what do you say we give this the old 1-2 slogan,
1-2
down the hatch?
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Shibbity-beep-doo! Oh, delicious.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
I don't know what you're experiencing right now, but this must be heaven on earth.
I am experiencing pure hop bliss.
Bearded iris is heaven on earth. Homestyle.
Try it again.
Bearded iris is heaven on earth.
That's bad.
That wasn't the best.
This has got to be more than 65 IBUs.
Is it really?
It's really
bitter?
strong. It's really hoppy.
Mine's so mild and drinkable, but like the hop presence is there, but it's juicy and it's delicious. And I'm gonna check this out on our favorite. What do you call that? Our favorite social
Beer
media
app.
drinking app called Untapped. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5. Perfect rating.
I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 5. This is so golden good.
This is one of my favorite beers ever. This double Homestyle.
Is it?
It's so good.
This beer,
I would have this over and over. Like the regular Homestyle was fantastic, but the double Homestyle just gives it a lot more oomph,
just
a lot more backbone.
just a wee bit more oomph.
They must have added some more hops and some more grains and all kind of stuff. But
They must have
oh,
added
man, it's
something
so
to give it
good.
that extra oomph. You know what I'm talking about?
You want to do a little trade ski, a little taste ski?
Yeah, you know what? I think that we probably should know a little about trade ski. Here you go.
Okay. Oh, yours smells.
Whoa, yours smells way different than mine.
Yours doesn't really necessarily smell like IPA. That what I would expect. I think I can smell booziness almost.
Let's give these a try.
Yes, let's give these a try.
That's really good.
This tastes boozy.
Yeah.
This is a really intense beer.
Well, I'll say one thing about that double Homestyle. It does not taste like a locker room.
Yeah.
Not that I would
think
know
mine
a
is much
locker
more
room.
drinkable than yours.
Yes, I would say so.
You could have one of those Yangs and be done for the night. You could have a couple of these double Homestyles and it's just drinkable.
Yeah.
It's delicious.
Right, exactly.
Mine actually clocks in at I think 8.2% is what it says.
Yes.
So it's not the thing you want to pound back and forth when you're like during a weekday, you know, just not.
Yeah.
You got to get up in the morning. It's not a good idea, but it tastes very smooth and drinkable. It's delicious. As per usual, if the beer changes per our taste buds as it warms up, we will let you know. Do you want to move on to the music?
Yeah, you know what? Why don't we?
All right, we'll just continue in the same order that we did last week. So I'll go first with Bon Iver.
Okay, let's do it up. Let's do it up.
Now, as I said before, this album is called 22 A Million.
Yep.
All right, so this album came out 5 years after they released their last album, which was a self-titled, in 3 years since their last live show. So they did a live show. I don't remember which country they were in, but they went on hiatus. They made it very clear that they weren't broken up. The record label also made it very clear. Because they're the ones, you know, got to make that bank. So they were just on a really long break. And Justin Vernon, like I said in the last episode, he essentially is Bon Iver. He's their singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, guy from Wisconsin. He's
Eau Claire. From
Eau Claire, Wisconsin, yeah. So he spent a lot of time writing and recording in his hometown with some of his friends and people he knew. And I think he actually recorded in the house that he lived in. He lived there and then he moved out and they recorded there. Or he was living there while they recorded, but he had been a resident there for a long while prior.
Yes.
He made that clear.
For a while, yeah. I can't remember what they called their studio.
There's a name. I'm drawing a blank right now. You can look it up if you're so inclined.
If you're interested in that.
If not, it's okay. Anyhow, he was writing all this new stuff that was really different. I don't mean lyrically, I mean musically.
Yeah, musically
So recording-wise, they incorporated a lot of new things, such as a lot of electronic instruments, which really wasn't present at all in the last couple albums. Maybe a little bit in the last one, but not so much. Definitely not in the first album.
Yeah.
He put in a little bit of hip-hop influence.
Yeah, well, he put in a lot of
because he worked with
samples.
Kanye West.
In between, yeah.
Yes, he used a lot of samples in this one, and random samples from live performances, old songs, even samples of like people talking. And
like there's one sample in one of the songs from a local radio station that he listened to in Eau Claire, or something like that.
Yeah, it's really odd.
Yeah.
And they used some brand new instruments, which I'll touch upon later.
Yes.
When I say brand new, I mean they created them.
Yes, they created
like they were
instruments,
inventors of instruments. What's an instrument inventor called? Is
Uh,
there a name for them? There's got to be a name.
I'm trying to think because like
A luthier is someone who makes it, but they don't invent it.
Well, luthier is specifically about guitars.
Yeah. But they don't like create new things. They
they didn't like get a patent on it, obviously. But all I know, I'm trying to think of it because there was like someone who invented. I'm trying to think of what someone invented the saxophone.
Yeah,
like that hasn't always been an instrument, obviously.
Yeah, every instrument was invented by somebody.
I don't think there's a name.
There's probably a name. We just don't know. I bet you there's a weird name.
A musicalaire.
Pardon our ignorance of the nomenclature.
Yes,
but aside
please.
from that, they did invent a instrument for this album, which I will touch upon later.
Okay,
because I think it's a very big part of the album.
Oh yes, very much so.
But it's very unique, and even aside from that, they do a lot of weird sounds and weird manipulation of sounds.
Yes.
So it's a very different sounding album. Comparing it, since this is a episode that compares prior albums to later albums, there's a lot that changes in this one. When this album came out, just as a side note, I guess, it was a huge critical and commercial success. It sold a lot. I think it was a top-selling album of the week whenever it came out. Critically, it's what do you call that? Critically
acclaimed.
Acclaimed, yes. Some people likened it to Kid A by Radiohead, which is supposed to be one of their really big albums. Which I actually don't know much about Kid A,
Neither do
but I know it's supposed to be.
I haven't listened to Kid
a revelation,
very much.
so I hear. And this album also garnered a couple more Grammy nominations. They didn't win, but they were nominated. So even to be nominated is a big deal.
Yep.
One of my favorite bands was recently nominated, Blink-182, but that's another story.
They also didn't win, right? Who did win for the best rock album?
What was that one band? There Ain't No Rest for the Wicked.
Cage the Elephant?
I think they won. I wouldn't call them a rock band, but they were up for rock album of the year.
Oh, rock is so
Grammys,
broad.
but also Grammys. The Grammy definition of rock is even broader than regular.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just as a note up front about this album, I cannot, for the most part, tell what these songs mean lyrically, what Justin Vernon is trying to say.
Yeah.
I looked up the lyrics. I even read interpretations of the lyrics, but it's tough for me. The lyrics are often cryptic, possibly convoluted, and they're very dense. I would say that it would require a lot of dedication to sit down and dissect these lyrics and really absorb them to actually fully understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
I was telling Jesse earlier, they could probably teach a college course on this album alone lyrically.
Yeah, I would say so.
So I'm not really going to touch too terribly much upon the themes. If you have any inputs.
The one thing that I would say, kind of similar to the last album that you reviewed, what was the term? Epochs?
Epochs. There's definitely instances.
It seemed like that most of these songs are also in that same vein of like being about certain places that he is in his life, or
certain events,
events.
But even
places.
then, I couldn't really decipher what he meant.
Yeah.
I even said in my notes, which you'll hear later, this is about some specific event, but I don't touch upon what it is or what it means because I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be as deep about what the songs mean as I normally am. Just a little heads up, And also one other little note. The titles are again important.
Yes. Very much. Very
album.
Much so.
It was places. Each title was a place. This time it's a number, usually.
Yeah.
They might elaborate a little bit more than just a number, but there's numbers, and each number has significance for some reason to Justin Vernon.
Yes.
So, shall we begin?
We shall.
We shall. And I am going on the same rating system I did last week. The French rating. The Bon Iver rating system, I call it.
Sounds good. The Bon Iver rating system.
Bon Iver rating system. Copyright Stephen Johnston 2018.
You'll only be able to use it one more time if I ever recommend the first album.
Yeah, I could re-review an album one day, maybe. You never know.
True.
Ratings change over time. Anyways, the first song is called 22 Over Soon. I gave this a rating of Bone, and I gave it a honorable mention.
Nice. And just a note, the soon is not written with two O's, it's written with two infinity symbols.
Yes, but for another note here, if you actually look at the track listing on the back of the album, it's almost hard to read. They use a lot of symbols instead of letters. I'm not going to note upon that too much. I'm just going to read it in the layman's terms or whatever you want to call it. But yes, Jesse is correct. The two O's in soon are infinity symbols turned sideways.
Yes.
Or one infinity symbol turned sideways. Well, two.
Two.
But anyway, going back to the numbers, 22 is Justin Vernon's favorite number. He's on record as saying this, and he describes how it represents duality, kind of in general. Like, you can use the duality for a lot of reasons. But especially in this song with that line, it might be over soon.
Yeah.
And Justin Vernon mentioned that depending on the person and the situation, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Like, say you're having a really good time, you're like, oh no, this might be over soon.
Yeah.
Or versus someone who's having the worst day of their life, they're like, it might be over soon, thank goodness. So so there's duality to it. 22, it might be over soon. So that's pretty cool planning, and it's got a weird melody, but it's one of the songs I remember. So that's also why I honorably mentioned it. Which Jesse is doing right now. He takes the word soon, but he kind of manipulates it into a way that it sounds like two. So like the letter two, and he says it twice, so that's 22. So obviously he's referencing that. But I gave this honorable mention because I thought that was a cool little reasoning behind the title and what it meant. But also, I can remember the melody, so that's a good reason to remember it.
And
it might be over soon.
Where you gonna look for confirmation? I'll just say one thing too, before we move on here, that I had mentioned last week that it was really difficult to remember like what certain songs sounded like.
Yes.
And with this album, it is much easier for me to remember what a song sounds like.
I think I might agree with you.
And when I say much easier, that doesn't mean that I am able to. If you're like, oh, what does this song "8 a Circle" sound like? I wouldn't be able to be like that.
Yeah.
But songs are more memorable.
I would agree. They're more distinct. I'll say that. Yeah, distinct is a better word.
That's a way better word. Yeah.
But before I move on, a quick another side note, because there's so many side notes with this album. I feel like you could footnote the entire album, and then it would be like a whole book of footnotes.
Yeah.
A lot of people have contended that 22 represents Justin, while 1,000,000 represents either everyone or everyone else. I'm not really entirely sure. The first song on this album is 22 1,000,000. The last song is literally called 1,000,000, When you bring that together, it's 22 a million, which is the title of the album. So there's importance to this. Onward. Song number 2 is called 10 Death Breast.
Yep.
I gave this a rating of comme ci, comme ça, so.
Okay.
Drums.
Yeah, this is the first part where you see that they looped a drum track.
And it's
over and over again.
When I say drums, that's a loose term. It's some type of percussive instrument that is heavily distorted or blown out and very, very affected by some electronic instrument. Yeah. It's not my cup of tea. I think a lot of people like it. I couldn't get into it.
And I think the reason that I like it is because I listened to like dubstep back in high school.
That makes sense.
So like I really like that
the unique weird loop sound.
Beat. Yeah.
And it's a weird sound. So that's maybe not my background. Maybe that's why I couldn't connect with it.
Yeah.
But it's very unique and abrasive sounding.
Yeah. All I know is that whenever I first bought this album and I first heard this song, I was like, ooh, I like that. Like that's nice.
As soon as I heard it, I was like, oh. And unfortunately, that beat is in most of this song. So it's one of my less favorite songs on this album. There is a nice contrast when he starts singing because the vocal melody is pretty clear and a lot more pleasant sounding. So I think there's a nice juxtaposition, I believe is the correct word. Duality. Yes, yeah. So that's fine, but it's just, again, I couldn't really connect with it.
Okay.
Moving on to track number 3, which is called 7... Is it 715 or 715?
715.
715 Creeks, and 715 is the area code where Eau Claire is located.
Yep.
I gave this a rating of bone, and I recommended it.
Yeah, I very, very much like this song.
Yes.
This is where you first see that.
The very first time I heard it, I thought of Hide and Seek by Imogen Heap. You know that song?
I don't know that song.
What you say?
Okay.
Where are we? Well, you know the song. I've heard it.
Fairly certain.
The reason it reminded me of that is because it's got this like auto-tuned voice with tons of harmonies that are processed and put together.
Right. It's not auto-tuned though.
It is.
Well, it's not. It's not the conventional auto-tune.
It's a conventional auto-tune. I'm not saying like T-Pain auto-tune.
Right, but that's what most people would think of.
But most people are wrong.
Because you could say, I guess you could say the talk box is also auto-tune. Right.
Every vocal you hear on a recording is auto-tuned. This one you can kind of tell, but it's not. I'm not saying like T-Pain auto-tuned.
Yeah, it's not like a negative auto-tune.
There's no negative connotation intended there. Mm-hmm. However, what makes this song different than Imogen Heap's Hide and Seek is the instrument that they used, and this is the instrument they created called the Messina. Mm-hmm. It was created by, I believe, Justin, some guy named Chris Messina, and maybe one or two other people. I can't really remember. But what this instrument does is it allows, and this is a direct quote from I think Justin Vernon talking about it. It allows them to split a melody into harmonies on the fly, giving the player ability to change the chords and the arrangement in real time.
Right.
So that's the big difference, because a lot of, if you ever hear anything that sounded like this on another song, it was probably they would record multiple things and then put them together afterwards in post.
Yeah.
So this allows them to do it. They could do it live if they wanted to.
Yeah.
With this
and I've seen a video of this live, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like I believe it's just like a little keyboard with like a microphone attached to it. I think that's all it is.
So it's pretty cool that they did this, and it's musically off the top of my head, I can't remember if there's any other instruments or if it's just his vocals.
It's just his vocals through the whole thing. Yeah.
And it's really cool sounding.
Yeah.
And the melody, if you take away even the harmonies, the melody is really catchy. Remember something. And again, this is a song where he's talking about specific instances, like down among the creeks, I remember something. So he's talking about these specific instances, and there's another instance later where he remembers something again on a different term.
From what I can tell, it seems like this song is about wanting to get out of Eau Claire.
Could be.
Because I think there was a portion I don't know if you're going to touch on this later, but I know he went to some island in the Mediterranean. One of the Greek isles.
Yeah.
But for a while to try to figure out
he tried to find himself and he couldn't.
But the other reason I say that, one of the last lines in this song is he says, "Turn around now, you're my A-team."
Yeah.
Galdern, turn around, you're my A-team.
Yeah. Except he says, like you're my number one, come back.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if he's talking to a person or if he's talking to Eau Claire or who knows what he's talking about.
But
he knows, but that's
he does know.
But before we move on, just one more note.
Okay.
The Messina instrument comes back in multiple songs. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
But there's one track in particular that it's featured prominently, which is a track called 45. I'll touch upon that later because it's used really differently.
Yeah.
On to song number 4, which is called 33 God. I gave this song Decor. It's okay.
Decor.
3 is a holy number. The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Holy Trinity, some may say. So obviously, when he says 33 God, that's for a specific reason.
Yeah.
And do you know how long the song is?
3 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yes. So there's obviously some planning. It's interesting, huh?
I think during that press conference that I sent you, he talks about how he really enjoyed studying religion in college.
Yeah, and I'll touch upon that in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was just going to try to shed some light on the meaning of this song.
But if you're all curious what this press conference Jesse is talking about, Justin Vernon, I believe, is right before he released the album into the world? Or right after the premiere, maybe?
It was
around the time of the release or premiere.
All I know is that during the press conference, they listened to the whole album.
Yeah.
That's all I
So
know.
it was a press conference where he talked about the new album, and he invited a whole bunch of prominent reporters
magazines,
radio stations to one place, and he gave one press conference so that he didn't have to do a whole press junket for a tour, and he'd have to call in radio stations all the time. He just wanted to do it once and be done with it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really interesting information. I'd recommend listening to it. It might help you appreciate the album more. We'll post a link for it on our website. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't come up with
Website, that's the word.
which is brewsandtunespodcast.com. Check it out.
Yes.
But anyways, this song really, it's just okay. I liked it at the beginning when it was just vocals and piano, but the drums are kind of cool when they come in, but I just like the stripped back vocal and piano because this album doesn't have too much in the way of stripped back.
Yeah.
Unlike the previous efforts of Justin Vernon.
Yeah.
Moving on to track number 5, which is called 29 Stratford Apartments.
APPT.
APTS. Yeah. I gave this a rating of decor. It's okay.
Okay.
But an acoustic guitar starts the song. Yep. Finally! Not that there weren't guitars in other songs. There were.
Finally!
In fact, I think there's a guitar in the first song that comes in and just strums the chords. But it's kind of cool to have a guitar starting out the song. Mm-hmm. And that picking pattern reminds me of that one song from Inside Llewyn Davis. When
really?
do 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 do. It just, but then it changes really quick.
Back Baltimore.
But it was just, the song almost has a folky vibe to it. It doesn't last forever, but it is there, and there's not that much in the way of folky vibes on this album. Which when I think Bon Iver, I think folky.
Yeah.
So this is probably maybe the closest we'll get to folk on this album. There's a melodic hook that happens in this song, and it happens quite a bit. Maybe 3 times total. But in the last time they do it, it almost sounds like they obviously affected it somehow, but it almost sounds like a radio that's cutting in and out from reception.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I remember what you're talking about, yeah.
And I'm not really... Like that line, and it just kind of cuts in and out, and I'm not really sure why they did it. Obviously, it's intentional. I think everything that happens on this album is very intentional.
I would agree with you there.
Just an odd choice. Just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Moving on to track number 6, which is called 666 Upside Down Cross.
Yep. This is the song that deals with
religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave this song a comme ci, comme ça. It's so-so. But obviously, even if for those who aren't versed in religion or Judeo-Christian or any of those things, people know that 666 represents the devil.
Yeah.
It's very obvious. There's no accident that this is track number 6. Right. Wow! Obviously, like we touched upon very briefly, Justin Vernon was raised Catholic. He talks about being confirmed. He even studied religious studies in his school.
Yeah.
So he knows a lot about religion, and he has had a falling out.
Yes.
However, he finds great importance in religion because it allows you to see why people do what they do or why they think what they think. Mm-hmm. And he finds a lot of value in a religious symbolism.
Yeah.
And he touches upon that a lot in this album, mainly this song in particular, but it definitely comes back a lot in the album. Even the very beginning of the song, they talk about like the 6s hung up, and it he caught his attention. You can't ignore that.
Yeah.
It might not have been like a literal 666. Might have been something like an omen or something bad that he saw. Who knows? But probably I don't know.
But like regardless, though, I would say that he's not like bashing religion.
No.
Like he's looking at it from a very intellectual
place.
Kind of like the way I would assume Greg Graffin would look at it.
Yeah, from Bad Religion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just from a we'll just say an educational, academic study. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing saying bad, just an academic study. Musically, melodically, it's very so-so. That's why I gave it the rating.
Comme c'est comme ça.
Comme c'est comme ça.
Comme ça, ça.
Shall we move on? Yes, you shall. Okay. Moving on to track number 7, which is called 21 Moonwater. I gave this a rating of Mal. It's my least favorite on the album.
Moonwater.
But the numbers are important here. Why are they important? What is 21 to you?
21.
It's 7 times 3.
Oh.
7 in Judeo-Christian religion is the number of God.
Yeah.
3 is a holy number as well. Put them together, 21.
Huh.
Track number 7.
Never thought about that, actually.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah. Very interesting.
And what did I say? 7 times 3? What is that when you multiply things? Or you add, what is that called? That's that academic class that you go to,
multiplication?
Yeah, but what's the grander thing?
Algebra?
Yeah, but you're simplify it. What class are you going to?
Math?
Yes, math! He even sings about math in this song.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get you to say math.
At some point I realized, I remembered what was in the song and I realized what you were trying to do.
It's just kind of funny. But this song, there's a lot of weird sounds in this song.
Yeah.
They come in sporadically near the first half of the song, but as it progresses, the song almost deteriorates and these weird sounds are everywhere. And the song goes from order to chaos. How about that?
Okay.
Remember that. Order to chaos. It
Okay.
might come back later. Anyways, moving on to track number 8, which is called 8 Circle. I gave this Bone. It's my second recommendation.
Okay.
This is easily the most
it's so
melodic and catchy song on the album.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe not my favorite, but still I'd say the most melodic and catchy song on the album.
There's a really cool video on YouTube where he plays this song on acoustic guitar, just acoustic guitar.
I would like to hear that.
For one person. It's like this weird European festival where they're doing these segments where an artist will play a song of theirs to one person in this weird room.
That's really
weird.
But is it
anyway,
broadcast to a bunch of people or something?
No, now it is because it's on YouTube.
They recorded it, yeah.
But it's kind of cool though because it's
idea.
just acoustic guitar. So it's
I'd like to hear that.
Kind of a cool version of it.
But before we go into anything about the song, the number 8, if you turn it sideways or disconnect them, I guess it's 2 circles.
Yep.
So 8 circle, Ho-ho!
Another duality, I guess.
No, definitely duality. There's duality all across this album.
Yeah.
The melody is kind of more reminiscent of what I expect from Justin Vernon and Bon Iver.
Yeah.
It's a lot more longing and melancholy sounding,
Mm-hmm.
more so than the rest of the album. Again, I'm not really sure what it's about, but I'm positive he's touching upon specific instances or examples in his life.
Yeah.
It's a very conventional chord progression, I'd say, and a very conventional melody. But it doesn't take away from it at all. I think it's a very catchy song. The first time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's nice. That's a good change of pace, especially from the last song, going crazy.
Right.
Maybe that's why the last song went crazy. But moving on to track number 9, which is called 45. I gave this a rating of Génial. It's my last recommendation.
Génial?
Yeah. It's great.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
The Messina returns.
Yes.
That's that instrument we're talking about. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere. They use it in multiple songs, but it returns for its most prominent
usage
again.
Yep.
They don't use it for the vocals per se in the song. They use it for a saxophone.
Yeah. How
which
cool
is
that?
Weird. And I did read that it was they recorded it was a freeform saxophone part.
Yeah, it was just they just kind of improvised.
Yeah, and so the saxophone is split up into all these harmonies, and it almost sounds the timing is affected too, and it's odd and out there, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of chaotic when all these like saxophone parts are coming in all over the place. And if you're listening with headphones, it's in stereo, so it sounds even cooler.
Yeah.
But my favorite part about this song, other than the end of the song when it's really awesome, is that it gradually gets more and more ordered. Like the randomness of the saxophone kind of pulls together as the song progresses, and it gets more and more regular sounding. I don't know a better word.
Yeah.
So where 21 Moonwater went from a pleasant sounding song to chaos, this song almost went chaos to order.
Okay, interesting.
And they have 8 circle in between those two. There's probably some significance, but
I would say so.
I'd say the two songs are related. And Moonwater, obviously they're talking about water, and that comes up a couple times. This song is not water; they talk about fire.
Mm-hmm.
And the lyrics repeat themselves.
I was born in fire. I stayed out the other night.
I'm trying to do harmonies, but it's too tough.
I was born in fire.
And the vocal melody that comes in while the saxophones are doing who knows what is just really catchy. And as it gets to this more ordered spot, it sounds so pleasant. And it's just
the melody like crescendos and like gets higher and
the melody starts to continue to the point where like the saxophone starts to continue. It almost sounds like an organ playing. It might be an organ, I don't really know. But it just sounds really pleasing at the end, and it's my favorite song on the album.
Nice.
Plus, there's some weird banjo at the end.
Yeah, true.
It's just weird. But it fades out into the last song, which is called A Million, but it's stylized really weird. It's 5 zeros and then the word million. And the reason they picked 5 zeros is because if you have it on like iTunes or anywhere where they have the track number right before it, you'll see 10 and then 5 zeros. So it's
A million.
Literally a million. I gave this a rating of bone. It's a very pleasant melodic song. Unfortunately, the reason I didn't give it a honorable mention or recommendation is because I can't really remember like the melody. Like I've listened to the song a ton of times and it's just something that doesn't really stick with me. Okay. I'm happy every time I hear it. It's very pleasant. The piano is triumphant. I'll say that.
I will say that. Remember the last album where I said track number 10 was very hymnal, like a hymn.
Yeah,
I would say that this
time.
One's definitely very
time.
hymnal as well, or it sounds hymnal or gospel or something like that.
I will say that I'm gonna contradict myself a little bit. I remember one part of this song.
Okay,
it's the sampled part. The days have no numbers.
Yeah,
that part comes back quite a few times.
Days have no numbers.
But I think that's an interesting thing to say. No numbers on an album that's number centric.
Yeah.
So maybe Justin Vernon, like I just did, he's now contradicting himself, perhaps.
A wee bit of a contradiction, eh?
Yeah. So obviously there's some reason why he did that. It's pretty cool to have that in the song.
Yeah.
I'll give my review of the album. It's not my cup of tea.
Yeah. Just like the last one too.
After listening to it and studying it, and especially after watching his press conference, which we'll put on our website, I really appreciate the album. I think that everything was meticulously put together.
Meniscusly.
Everything was meticulously put together.
Yeah.
From the album artwork, which is cool to look at, from the arrangements to the instrumentations to the vocal lines to the lyrics. Nothing happens on accident in this song. This album, I should say.
Yeah.
But it's not my cup of tea. The replay value for me personally really isn't there.
Very high. Yeah.
There's a lot of merit to this album. Obviously, the critical acclaim, the commercial success, and the Grammy nominations. I respect it. It's just not for me. And that's fine. And not everyone likes everything. It's fine.
For me, this album has very high replay value.
Yeah, we got different tastes. That's fine. I'm not going to knock the album. I'm glad I listened to it. I don't regret listening to it.
Yeah,
it's just not for me. And before we move on to Jesse's album, I'm going to give a couple differences between these albums because I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
I think he used his lower register a lot more than the previous album. A little less falsetto, which I kind of liked actually. The falsetto thing's not my cup of tea. Obviously, the sound, the electronic sound, all the influences is the huge difference.
Yeah.
But I think something that people won't necessarily look at as much as the song structure changes big time. In the last album, the song structure was a little bit more, I don't want to say conventional, but it was a little more, you know what to expect. And he did some things that were different on that album, but here the song structure is all over the place.
Yeah.
The way he arranges these songs is just very unique, and it's different and kind of cool. It's because I'm a pretty traditional guy when it comes to song structure, so to hear something different is refreshing.
Yeah, I would say so.
This might actually be one of my least favorite albums that you've recommended.
Even more than Broken Bells.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I said, I don't regret listening to it. It's just
it's just not for you.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, if you guys don't like an album we review or recommend, that's fine. We're just trying to branch out your views, and I like that you recommended this to branch out my views. My musical tastes and views have been branched out. Now stop.
They have grown.
They will never grow again. I will never branch out. No, I'm kidding. I'll continue to branch out.
Oh man, for sure.
Yeah.
But to move on to an album that is a little bit more, the changes in the album are a little bit more obvious.
Yeah.
Or less convoluted, less unknown.
A little more upfront.
A little bit more upfront.
On the nose.
So I'm reviewing the album from Against Me called Transgender Dysphoria Blues. So the obvious first change that I'm going to talk about is that Tom Gable, correct?
Correct.
Began between those two albums, between the album that I reviewed last week and this album, came out as a transgender woman.
Correct.
And made the process, or started the transition,
Yes.
to Laura Jane Grace.
Mm-hmm.
So this album, she wrote as Laura Jane Grace and not as Tom Gable.
The first album from Laura Jane Grace. Correct.
Yes, and so that's the obvious change, the obvious thing that is different. And with that brings a whole lot of emotional and very personal strife from her.
Yeah.
I'll say that take what I say about these songs with a grain of salt, because I'm not experienced with how that would feel. Or
not many people are. It's
a very what's the word for it? Not a lot of people experience it.
It's not the most common thing, but it happens.
Yeah. But what I'll say is that I believe her lyrics are very straightforward.
Do you know what dysmorphia means?
Dysphoria.
That's what I meant to say.
General uneasiness of how you feel.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Like a lot of people will talk about body dysphoria, where there's a mental health condition where people have body dysphoria, where they will like look at themselves in the mirror and think that they're like huge and fat, but they'll like literally be malnourished and underweight. Yeah. Like so, it's a real thing, and so when they put transgender in there, it's obviously a
Transgender Dysphoria Blues. Yeah. I'll touch on that in the last track.
And can I make one note?
Yeah.
In some of Against Me's other albums, between Reinventing Axl Rose and this one, there have been some lyrics that he had that alluded to this. Are you going to touch upon this at all?
No, you can say something now.
For example, on the album New Wave, they have this song called "The Ocean," and one of the lyrics says, If I could have chose, I would have been born a woman. I would have been named Laura."
Yeah.
So
that's clearly a connection, right?
pretty obvious.
But again, I will say that I'm approaching this album with great care, because it's obviously in America right now. It's a very hot. What's the right word for it though? It's like a touchy. It's not like a touchy subject, but
it can be. You don't want to step on anyone's toes or offend anyone.
Yeah.
And it's a very divided time in America too. So
and like obviously, if someone feels that way, like there's no reason that I should say that they can't feel that way. You know.
If you guys disagree with anything that we say on this album or anything, and instead of getting mad and posting about it, just send us a message. We'll have a conversation.
Yeah, but all that aside, I would say that this album, while the content is very emotionally driven and in some ways sad and difficult, I would say that it's very triumphant.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Perhaps their most personal record to date.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
So we're gonna get it. We're gonna start it off with track number 1.
We're gonna start it off, perhaps. Okay.
Anyway,
I started that and I didn't know how to end it. I really had no idea how to end that. I'm sorry. Perhaps.
Just a quick note: as this beer is warmed up, it is very good. Again, I'm having Evil Twins beer Yang.
Is the flavor changed at all?
The other half of Yin. I would just say that it's gotten even more malty and like even more hoppy.
Mine
is warmed up.
Is consistently the exact same. Delicious. Solid gold.
Anyway.
Solid hazy gold.
Back from that beer break. Here we go. Back to Jesse and Stephen about the album.
Thank you, announcer. You're great.
Yes, thank you, announcer. Anyway, back to the track number 1, which I gave 5 out of 5 and recommended. It's called Transgender Dysphoria Blues, title track.
Wow.
This song, I will say, kind of connects to the album I reviewed before, in the way that it sonically kind of sounds the same.
Yeah, with the drums and the
guitar tone. Yeah. It sounds not identical, but similar.
Yes, and it's very reminiscent of their folky punk sound.
Yeah, the thing that's different about it is she doesn't scream as much,
and that's probably most of the album.
Yeah,
whereas that's Reinventing Axl Rose.
Yeah,
lots of screams.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest difference between the two albums, is that she doesn't scream nearly as much.
Yeah.
Or at all, really.
Maybe slightly here and there, but not really much at all.
Yeah. So basically, this song is about wanting the world, or just people she comes in contact to, like in her everyday life, to view her as who she is.
Who she is, yeah. Even just the people you walk by, yeah.
Yeah, and the one lyric that really brings us home for me, or kind of tells me that this is what it's about, is a lyric that I'll read you here. There is some might consider it offensive language, but I'm going to read it anyway because I think it really drives through.
Just call it
emotional. So it starts off by saying, "You want them to notice the ragged ends of your summer dress. You want them to see you like they see every other girl. They just see a faggot. They hold their breath not to catch the sick."
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize if anyone's offended by me saying that, but I believe that that's probably how she truly feels.
Oh, definitely.
And so I feel like you need to. Anyway, doesn't really matter.
It's a very stinging word for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It has a lot of that word has a lot of baggage.
Yeah. Heavy connotation.
Yeah. And the part that strikes me the most about that lyric is they hold their breath not to catch the sick.
Mm-hmm.
Which
as if it's contagious.
Yeah, as if her being a woman is contagious. Or like the fact that whenever she was a guy, she felt like a woman, and that would someone maybe would catch that quote unquote sickness, which is just
not going to happen.
A little bit ridiculous. But anyway, I would say that this song is like the flagship of the whole album.
I would agree.
It seems like that, both sonically and topic wise. Very, very good. Highly recommend it.
Word.
Track number 2 is called "True Trans Soul Rebel," and I give it 5 out of 5 and recommend it as well.
True trans Soul Rebel.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
Do 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 do.
This is a song dealing with questions/problems a transgender person faces, and a longing for a community to fit in, basically. Because I can only imagine how isolating that would feel if one were to feel that way.
Yeah, it's got to be very isolating. Whenever Tom made the change to Laura, everyone close said they were okay with it. Like the bandmates, his then wife.
Heather.
Was it Heather?
Then wife.
Yeah.
As of now, they're not together?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe they separated or divorced. Don't quote me. And half the band quit. Or half the band is no longer in there. So I think there was some type of difficulties that happened. So the people you would think are closest, obviously. I mean, that's a big change. It's like I said, touchy subject. What would you do in that situation? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a interesting subject. So obviously the isolation is there.
Yeah. But I just think that's a great song.
It's really catchy too.
Super catchy.
Super catchy. I saw them live recently, and they
play that song.
They play this one. Yeah.
Nice.
It was a good show.
Yeah, I kind of wish, like you had said, do you want to go to it? Even though you don't really know much music about them, do you want to go to it? And I was like, no, I'll just skip it. I should have gone.
I took Becca, and she knew like 2 songs, and at the end she's like, "That was so good."
I know, I should have gone. I really regret not going.
They're worth driving to see. They're very good live.
Yeah. Anyway, on to track number 3. It's called "Unconditional Love," and I gave it this 3.5 out of 5. And I would say basically it's a song about struggling with the idea of unconditional love.
Yeah, it's a
because
strange idea.
Yeah, struggling with the idea of how someone could love you unconditionally.
Do you like the bass in this song? The bass lines?
Yeah.
Do you know who recorded it? Fat Mike.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
The bass player left the band, obviously.
Oh, okay.
So Fat Mike filled in, and I believe they were on their second. Their original drummer actually quit before the album before this, but the drummer they had replacement quit before this album came out. So Adam Willard filled in on drums, and he's now their actual drummer.
Oh wow!
Yeah, from
That's
Angels
really
and Airwaves.
Cool. Oh, cool.
And Rocket from the Crypt and a whole bunch of other bands.
Yeah. Anyway, on to track number 4. It's called "Drinking with the Jocks."
I'm drinking with the jocks.
And I gave the song 3.5 out of 5. I like it. Like, it's catchy. There's even more offensive language in this song.
Oh, there's offensive language all over this album.
But this song, I would say, from what I can tell, this song is basically about trying to fit in, like, with the popular crowd instead of being yourself.
Yeah.
So, like, when you should just be yourself and fit in whoever you fit in with. This is like trying to conform to
someone else's
what you
idea
believe
of cool.
is popular or whatever. Anyway, on track number 5, I gave it 3 out of 5, and it's called "Osama bin Laden as the Crucified Christ."
That's great.
Not,
Some imagery there.
I'm not exactly sure what the song's about.
I'm not either. It's kind of dark and heavy sounding.
It reminded me of a Jack White song.
Just the sound.
In the terms of the in the terms of sonically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's from what I can tell, it's hate directed at someone or some group of people, but I don't really know who. I could be wrong about that though. I have no idea.
FML, right?
Yeah. Anyway, on to the next song, FML 666.
For those of you who don't know what FML means, it's the F word, my life.
Yep.
666.
Yep. So a 666 in this album as well.
Interesting. And it's track number 6 again.
Track number 6, yep. I give the song 5 out of 5 and I recommend it.
I believe you recommended all the singles off of this album.
Oh, really?
Yes.
For the record, I did not know what the singles were off this album.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Before listening to it. This song is really good. It's very, very catchy.
Yes, it is.
But it's kind of a really heavy subject. And it's a song at the time of its release dealing with her then wife, Heather. Mm-hmm. And whether or not, like the anxiety about coming out to her. About Laura's transition that she wanted to undergo.
Me myself personally, I don't really understand the whole transition. Like I don't have the transgender dysphoria, so I can't understand.
Yeah.
So obviously I don't understand. I don't know what it's like, but
yeah,
if I was in that position and I had a wife of many, many years and a child with this wife, I can't imagine trying to come to terms and say that to your partner.
Yeah, so I believe that's why the song is called FML 666.
Yeah,
because it's just like
I can't do this.
Don't even know what to do right now. Yeah. But yeah, I think like the song is sonically catchy, and also it's the context of the song is good too.
Yeah, it is. Very good song.
Interesting to think about, both from her standpoint and from anybody's standpoint who's maybe has some type of thing they need to tell someone. You know. But anyway, on to track number 7. It's called Dead Friend, and I give it 4 out of 5.
It's a dark title.
Yeah, it is. And I believe it's just a song about mourning the loss of a close friend. Close friend.
Agreed.
I guess his nickname was Pope.
Pope John Paul?
Yeah, something like that.
Pope John Francis?
No.
Pope Mario Lemieux? He's the Pope of Pittsburgh.
He's the Pope of Pittsburgh.
Oh, man.
He's at least the Pope of the Penguins.
Do you know Wayne Gretzky's number?
Was that?
99.
99.
And you know Lemieux's number, right? 66.
100.
It's flipped, right?
Oh, it's flipped.
Wayne Gretzky's great, but I think Mario Lemieux's way better.
I don't know.
I think he's better.
It all depends. I mean, times have changed so much. People would probably say Crosby's better.
He's not.
He's not.
In the late, very big gress here. In the late 80s, Lemieux had, he was outscoring everyone in the league, and he was setting records. Mm-hmm. And then he had back problems.
Oh shoot!
To the point where when he would get up off the bench to go over, he would have to pick his leg up because he couldn't stand up. Or when he was on planes, he had to get people to put his stuff in the overhead bin and help him stand up because he couldn't do that.
That's crazy.
He was on I believe it was a 29-game streak, scoring
streak. Oh my god!
I can't remember the exact number, but he was 7 or 8 games away from Gretzky's record. And do you know why the streak broke?
Why?
He had to sit out a game because his back hurt so bad.
Wow.
Crazy, huh?
That sucks.
So he had a back surgery and then had a rare bone infection and had to sit out.
Oh my gosh.
And then later on in his career, he had Hodgkin's disease. He had cancer. Jeez. And had to get radiation. So he's had a very, very lot of ailments.
Wow.
But he is the only player ever to score 5 times in one game, 5 different ways. Full strength, shorthanded, power play, penalty shot, open net.
Wow.
It's never happened.
That's pretty cool.
Well, 5 goals in one game is just
crazy
in general. And to do 5 different ways. Never happened since.
His number should have been 55.
Nah. I mean, in hindsight maybe, but no. Lemieux's the greatest. Fight me for it. I'll hockey fight you.
I'm good. I don't need to.
No, not you, just the listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Hockey fight me, listeners.
Hockey fight. What?
Yeah. But you have to wear a hockey jersey.
Just another side note, another gress. If you don't like, if you're a fan of hockey but you don't like fighting in hockey, you should watch the documentary Ice Guardians
On Netflix.
on Netflix. Yeah, shout out to Ice Guardians. It's a great documentary
Great documentary. Check it out.
about the history of fighting in hockey
It
and
might
why
change
it's
your mind
necessary.
about fighting, yeah.
Yeah.
I know my dad, even though he watches it, he still doesn't like fighting.
Yeah.
Well, his reasoning is if you do that on the street, you go to jail. I
Which-
can see that, but I think it's part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason that I don't agree with what your dad thinks there is that the people who are doing the fighting are consenting to it within the rules of the game.
True.
So,
But then again, there are some people who get...
what about boxing?
Well, those people definitely consent. But in hockey, there are
Yeah,
some
but
people
boxing, you would get arrested for doing that too. But people still say boxing is a sport.
Agreed.
So, anyway.
Fair enough.
Anyway, enough with sports. Enough with the sports.
Yeah.
Enough with the small talk.
Yeah, let's bury the sports in
Yeah.
some coffins.
What are we talking about here? Hockey night in Canada?
Let's talk about the good guys.
Let's talk about against me.
Oh, eh?
Eh?
Yeah, let's bury that sports talk in some coffins, man.
Oh boy, yes. Specifically 2 coffins, because we
Yeah.
were talking about boxing and hockey.
Yeah, let's put them in 2 coffins.
Anyway, on to track number 8. I gave it 4 to 5, and it's called 2 Coffins. This song is kind of sad.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's realistic, but sad.
Yeah.
Because from what I can tell, it's a song about how everything comes to an end eventually
Do you know who he wrote the song for?
for his daughter.
Yeah.
Her daughter.
Her
Sorry.
daughter. I'm sorry.
My bad.
My pronouns are not.
Yeah, I'm not. My pronouns are not on fleek tonight.
My pronouns are not woke.
Yes.
I suppose that's the word.
And
It was written for her daughter, which is interesting, huh?
yeah, very interesting.
And everything's gonna come to an end.
Yeah, and the
We're gonna
lyric,
need 2
the
coffins.
lyric that I wrote down is 2 coffins for sleep.
Yeah.
So-
Dark. But true.
Yeah, it's very dark. And this is acoustic, acoustic style. Anyway, on to track number 9, Paralytic States. I was reading some comments on Lyric Genius, and there was one user who commented a lot on this album, and who is also transgender as well.
Uh-huh.
And she wrote about this song that like some of the lyrics in this song hit her the hardest and like meant the most to her. And the lyric that I wrote down is kind of crazy and takes a while to process. So I won't go too deep into it. I'll let you guys process that yourselves. So think of this in the context of a man who feels like a woman and is going through that process of transitioning. The quote, the lyric is, "In her dysphoria's reflection, she still saw her mother's son." So, like dealing with that, the fact that all of your family has known you as one gender forever, but feeling a different way the whole time. And so that's why I kind of like how she said in her dysphorias, with the quote or apostrophe between the A and the S.
Yeah.
So giving the dysphoria life and like possession.
Yeah.
You know?
Giving a little ownership there.
Yeah, in her dysphoria's reflection, she still saw her mother's son. So I thought that was a very telling line and a very good way, like, not a good, that's not
Just
the
honest.
right, that's not the right nomenclature. Yeah, a very honest song, a very honest lyric.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to track number 10. It's called Black Me Out. It's very, very catchy.
Is this the last song?
Yeah, this is the last
thought
song. 4 to 5. I'm not really sure what it's about, though.
I don't know. Going crazy, maybe? Black me out?
I have no
Do
idea.
you think it's about, like, getting blackout drunk?
I have absolutely no idea.
Because he talks about, like, I want to pee on your walls.
Yeah, but then I don't know.
I don't know.
Like,
It's hard to tell.
A lot of the other lyrics also talk about us, like, cutting someone's fat, fleshy fingers off.
You fat, fleshy fingers off.
So I don't know what it's about.
Cut those rings off those fat, yeah.
fleshy fingers.
But it's really catchy.
It is very catchy, yeah.
Black
me out!
Very catchy song. Anyways, 2 really good albums.
Yeah,
before we close out, what would you say are the biggest differences between Reinventing Axl Rose and this album?
Sonically, it's less shouting, more melodic, a little bit tighter in the way it sounds.
Production-wise,
Production-wise is a big difference.
They went from like probably the cheapest recording studio ever to like a full-scale,
Yeah.
state-of-the-art recording studio.
And then, obviously, I already touched on this earlier, but the fact that Tom Gable is now Laura Jane Grace, that is the biggest change emotionally and lyrically in the songs, in the album as well.
Definitely less folky.
Definitely less folky, more rocky. I would say definitely check it out, though. It's a solid album.
And I think we might review one of their albums in a one-off later, or maybe either a one-off or a repeater later down the road, but we'll get to that later.
Yep.
So that was the conclusion of our two-part episode. I hope you listened to both episodes. That's great.
Yeah, and if you... we should have said this at the beginning. If you're starting on this episode, go back to the last episode to listen to our reviews of the earlier albums.
Whoops for our order, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's backwards here.
But anyway, thank you for listening to this. Hopefully it was as educational, or whatever you want to call it, for you guys as it was for us.
Yeah. Going forward, next week we're going to do another one-off episode, like we normally do every other episode. Well, these past two episodes were an exception because there was a two-parter. But normally every other episode we're doing one-off, so we just review one album and we try one beer. So next week we will be reviewing the fantastic album Enema of the State from the Grammy-nominated band Blink-182. If that's not a good album, then I don't know what's...
Or as others might say, next week we are going to be reviewing the album Enema of the State by Blink-182.
Or as Stephen would say, we're going to be reviewing the album that shaped my life.
That's actually very true.
The way it just changed everything for me. It's a game changer. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a fun one next week. Not that it's not a fun one every week, but I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah. If you guys can't tell, Steve is a big fan of Blink-182.
Blink-182. Deep cut.
Deep cut.
Oh gosh.
Anyway, that's going to be next week. Why don't we give a little final review on our beers?
Yes. My beer, I know you said yours has changed. Mine has been consistent the whole way. I think it's really good.
And what beer are you having?
The Bearded Iris.
Double Homestyle. Okay, so just again,
sorry that I didn't say the name.
That's all right.
It's consistent the entire way through. It tasted fantastic cold. Tasted fantastic as it warmed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I said before, it's a little bit sweet, a lot of juicy, nice amount of hops, very drinkable, which is strange for an 8.2% double IPA, but it's very good. I would have this again, and I will have this again.
Yes, exactly. And for me, again, I'm having the Yang by Evil Twin Brewing, the Imperial Taiji style India Pale Ale. It's still very good, super hoppy. I still can't believe it's only 65 IBUs. But yeah, I would say that this is more malty than a normal pale IPA. Very good. If you get the chance, check it out. It's delicious.
Well, why don't we give the sign off, finish our beers, and have me on home. All right. Thanks again, you guys. My name is Stephen Johnston.
And my name is Jesse Titus.
Imagine if you put more staccato in that. Titus.
And my name is
Not this time. Oh, die Zauberflaute.
Hold on. My name is
Jesse Titus. Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. That's insane. Thanks again for listening, you guys. This is American Brews and Tunes.
Thank you so much.
Here's a theme song, you know it's not a mean song. It's a good song, just as it should song. American Brews and Tunes. Shibbity baby